Dear students, this is our 26th lecture on bioorganic chemistry and second lecture on enzyme models. And today we will discuss about supramolecular chemistry or post-gas chemistry. And the supramolecular chemistry is defined as the study of chemistry beyond the molecule and investigating new molecular systems in which the components are held together. So basically, in case of supramolecular chemistry, there is one molecule which will act as a host and other molecule which will act as a guest. And these are the interactions, non-covalent interactions between this host and the guest, which is known as supramolecular chemistry. And the Nobel Prize winner John Mary Land has defined supramolecular chemistry as the chemistry of molecular assemblies and of the intermolecular bond. So basically, this supramolecular chemistry involves some kind of non-covalent bonding or complexation between a host and a guest, which I have already told you. So the host generally is a large molecule. For example, crown ethers, they generally act as a host molecule, in which a guest molecule which will fit into the cavity of these crown ethers that will undergo non-covalent binding or complexation. Or some aggregate can also act as a host, such as an enzyme, or some synthetic cyclic compounds, they also act as hosts. And all these molecules, large molecule or aggregate or synthetic cyclic compound, they must possess a hole or a cavity in the center where the guest can fit into to have non-covalent binding or complexation with the host molecule. And guest molecule is generally monoatomic cation like sodium ions or potassium ions or calcium ions. So all metallic monoatomic cations, they can act as a guest. Or simple inorganic anion can also act as a guest. And if some aggregates, they are acting as host, then some hormones, pheromones or neurotransmitters, they can also act as guest. So host is defined as the molecular entity possessing convergent binding sites, whereas guest is defined as the entity with divergent binding sites. So this is the difference. This is convergent binding site. This is divergent binding site. So guest will bind to the host molecule. And the more complete definition of these host-guest complex was given in 1986 by Cram. According to him, the complexes, they are composed of two or more molecules or ions held together in unique structural relationship by electrostatic forces other than those of full covalent bonds. So as I have told you, there is no covalent bonding but non-covalent binding between host and guest. So this is how these two or more molecules, they are held together by non-covalent bonds. Then these molecular complexes, they are usually held together by hydrogen bonding. So that bonding or binding or complexation may be by hydrogen bonding or by ion pairing or by alpha acid interaction or by pi acid or pi base interactions or by metal to ligand binding, or by van der Waals attractive forces, or by solvent reorganizing. So all these types of forces, they are responsible for the molecular complexes. Either one or more than one type of these forces may be present in a complex. Then high structural organization in these types of host guest complexes is produced only through multiple binding sites. So within a host and guest there are multiple binding sites which will lead to the binding of the host with the guest. A host-guest relationship involves complementary stereoelectronic arrangement of binding sites in host and a guest. So, for example, you can see over here, this is a host-guest complex of 18 crown 6, which coordinates with potassium ions. So, potassium is acting as a guest, and these 18 crown 6 crown ether is acting as the host. So these oxygens, they because of the presence of these lone pairs on them, they are responsible for a coordination complex formation with this potassium ions. Then different types of interactions they are there in case of host guest chemistry. Most important among these are the electrostatic interaction. So as we know that strength of an ionic bond is comparable to a covalent bond, and in most of the host guest complexes there is a possibility of electrostatic interactions present in the molecule. For example, if we take the case of ionic compound sodium chloride, we know that in case of sodium chloride, sodium cation is surrounded by 6 chloride ions in a this cubic lattice structure. This is not a electrostatic host complex kind of a molecule, but we can define the electrostatic interaction in case of sodium chloride. So sodium is having a positive charge and chloride is having negative charge, but they have non-covalent ion-ion interactions. So this can be complementary to each other, sodium positive and chloride negative. So we will have these types of electrostatic interactions in case of host molecule and guest molecule also. For example, in this molecule that is tris diazabicyclooctane. So this is the three diazabicyclooctane molecules present in the complex, and you can see that this nitrogen is having a positive charge. So because one positive charge is present on each nitrogen, we can say that overall this molecule is having +3 charge, and this complements with anions such as ferrocyanide FeCN6 3 negative. So this will neutralize the 3 positive charge on this, and a supramolecule will be formed because of the electrostatic interactions between the positively charged nitrogens and negatively charged anions. So these types of ion-ion interactions between these two ions, they form a host guest complex where this will act as a host and this will act as a guest. And then in case of host guest chemistry, the electrostatic interactions, they may be of three types: ion-ion interactions, where positively charged ion can interact with negatively charged ion. There is an interaction between positive and negatively charged ions. Such type of interactions, they are called as ion-ion interaction. Then ion dipole interactions, where these types of systems, carbonyl compounds, they will act as dipole because carbon is having delta positive charge, oxygen is having delta negative charge. So this will interact with some ion. So this dipole interacts with some ion because when oxygen is having negative charge, that automatically means that it will interact with the opposite charge, that is positive. So such type of interactions, they are called as ion dipole interaction. Then dipole dipole interaction is when two say carbonyl molecules, they interact with each other. If oxygen interacts with carbon of another molecule, that will be our dipole dipole interaction. The ion-ion interactions, they are non-directional, whereas ion dipole interactions, the dipole must be suitably aligned for most favorable binding effectiveness, so that the bond energy is between 50 to 200 kilojoules per mole. Then the bonding of an ion such as sodium ion with the polar molecule like water, this is an example of ion dipole where water will act as a dipole. H is having delta positive charge, oxygen is having delta negative charge. So sodium ion will pair up or have interaction with the negatively charged oxygen to have ion dipole interaction. Similarly, alkali metal cations with macrocyclic crown ethers, as we have seen in the previous example, 18 crown 6 interacting or forming a complex with potassium ions. So their alkali metal cation will act as an ion, whereas macrocyclic crown ether will act as a dipole. So this is again one more example of ion dipole interaction. So in both these examples, lone pair of electrons present on oxygen atom that are attracted to the cationic positive charge on either sodium ions or potassium ions, which will lead to ion dipole interaction. Then dipole-dipole interaction, as I have told you, that when negatively charged oxygen of one carbonyl compound will have an interaction with positively charged carbon, then such type of interactions, they are called as dipole-dipole interactions. And these interaction can occur in these two ways. Either a single pair of poles on the adjacent molecules, they can interact. So here one oxygen is interacting with one carbon, or they can align on an opposing alignment. So one carbon is interacting with oxygen of the other molecule, and carbon of this is interacting with the oxygen of this molecule. So there are two possibilities: either there are two pairs of poles which can interact, or one pair of poles on the dipole can interact. And then these types of interactions, they have reasonably strong hydrogen bond, which is having of the energy equal to approximately 20 kilojoules per mole. Then hydrogen bonding is another type of non-covalent bonding which may be present in case of these types of dipole-dipole interactions. So when hydrogen atom is attached to an electronegative atom, and then it is attracted to a neighboring dipole on adjacent molecule or functional group. So you can see over here, for example, we know that in case of alcohols, they have dipole-dipole interaction. One molecule of alcohol will have a dipole-dipole interaction with another molecule of alcohol, because electronegative oxygen of one molecule and electropositive hydrogen of other molecule, they will have an intermolecular hydrogen bonding like this. Uh, Similarly, in the sorry, this is an intramolecular hydrogen bonding, and intermolecular is between two molecules. Ammonia is having a hydrogen bonding with alcohol. So this is electronegative part. Nitrogen is electronegative. This is electropositive. They will form a hydrogen bond. So this is hydrogen bond acceptor. This is hydrogen bond donor. So such type of interactions, they will lead to the formation of host guest complexes. As I have told you, it can either be intermolecular hydrogen bonding between, say, in case of carboxylic acids, two molecules of the carboxylic acids, they can have such type of hydrogen bonding, which will be called as intermolecular hydrogen bonding. Whereas intramolecular hydrogen bonding is where within the same molecule, orthonitrophenol or salicylaldehyde, we can have a hydrogen bond. Then is pi-pi stacking interactions. They are weak electrostatic interactions which occur between aromatic rings, and these pi-pi stackings, they may be face-to-face stacking, which is offset, or they may be perfect face-to-face stacking, where one aromatic ring completely occupies the other aromatic ring, or it may be edge to face stacking. So one molecule is oriented like this, other aromatic molecule is oriented like this, and there is the face to edge uh, interaction between these two types of uh, molecules. And such type of interactions, they are called as pi-pi stacking interactions, and they are very weak and occur only in case of aromatic rings. Then van der Waals interactions, they arise from polarization of an electron cloud due to the presence of an adjacent nucleus, which will lead to a weak electrostatic attraction between the host and the guest. And these van der Waals interactions, they are also non-directional in nature, and therefore they have only limited scope in case of host-guest complexes. But it is most important for the formation of inclusion compounds, in which the small organic molecules, they are incorporated within the crystalline lattice or molecular cavities of the host molecule. Then applications of this host guest chemistry or complexes. First is in case of enzymes, they recognize substrates very specifically, because we know that enzymes, they are specific in their activity. So because of this, living organisms, they predominantly synthesize L amino acids, and D amino acid is not synthesized. So this is again that living nature, how it uh, implies host guest chemistry. Then sensitivity of our nose towards different types of supramolecular chemistry entities. For example, uh, smelling can differentiate between plus or minus carbon, where the configuration of these two is different, and this you can say is an example of chiral recognition of different enantiomers by our nose. Then another application is creating artificial membranes which can mimic the functioning of biological membranes. This is another important application of supramolecular chemistry. Then tobacco mosaic virus. This is the RNA helical strand and tobacco mosaic virus, which consists of 2130 protein sheath, and this virus can be decomposed into its constituents by changing the experimental conditions, and this is an example of biomimetic chemistry. Then you have seen the example of a complex between nitroglycerin and beta cyclodextrin, which is also traded and available in the market. And this not only prevents the decomposition of nitroglycerin, but also increases its solubility, and hence the bioavailability of nitroglycerin is increased or enhanced, which will increase its shelf life. This is another example of host-guest chemistry. Then another aspect of future applications of supramolecular chemistry is that we can have cleaner technological processes for the removal of toxic waste from the environment. And presently these cyclodextrins, they are being used effectively for purification of the wastewater. So likewise, in future we will have more cleaner technological processes based on host-guest chemistry. Then supramolecular chemistry also provides us liquid crystals, which are widely used as displays. This is another example of application of host-guest chemistry. Then host-guest chemistry also finds application in optoelectronics, where use of nonlinear optical phenomena for the application of molecular assemblies is being used. Then organic compounds and supramolecular complexes, they also serve as conductors as well as semi and superconductors. So these are the few examples where this application is there. The room temperature conductivity of charge transfer complex of tetrathiafulvene with tetramethyl quinodimethane. These are the two compounds, and their conductivity is close to metals, and hence these are called as the complex of these two is called as an organic metal. So both is tetrathiafulvene and tetramethylquinodimethane. The charge transfer complex of these two act as an organic metal, and their conductivity is also close to metals. Similarly, several systems where these types of molecular devices have been proposed. And then this phenolphthalein dye can act as a sensor in complexation with beta cyclodextrin. So purple solution of the dye loses its color when it complexes with beta cyclodextrin. But when this solution is heated, then the color comes back. So we can use it to serve as scaling for the thermometer. So these types of application are there in case of supramolecular chemistry or host-guest chemistry. Thank you very much.